Grandpa was a well-known neighborhood bully and crook, though the only stolen objects I knew of firsthand were the ones he swiped while working as a security guard at the Jersey City Public Library and Museum in the late 1960s. Well, the book opens with my grandfather trying to kill us when I'm 5 years old. My grandmother had died a few months earlier, and my grandfather had sort of moved from place to place with different relatives, and he was extremely difficult. You know, we think he was bipolar. I mean, we never got a diagnosis. We lived on the corner of Mercer and Grove Streets. My parents' bedroom looked out onto Grove, a heavily trafficked street, and directly at City Hall and the Tired Lady. Our front door was on Mercer, a one-way treeless street of battered three-story brick buildings and dilapidated brownstones. So the kitchen was right there, right?
Yeah, that was the door.
The door was here to the tavern. So
that's what
that was the other side of the door.
Side,
There's another metal door?
Yeah. Well, I was always the type that I tried not to be ashamed of what went on in my family. Because I didn't do it. You know, my father was a problem when I was a kid. And I got to hold my head up. You know, people would talk and say things. But then I figured, well, I didn't do it, so why should I feel that way? You know,
you shouldn't be ashamed.
So when she wrote the book, I was like proud.
And my mother, earlier that day, had spoken to one of my aunts, and she had said that he was really angry at my dad and was threatening to kill him. So my mother, right away, as soon as she heard he had a gun, knowing her father and knowing he would use it, because he'd killed people before, called the police. And they were there about 2 minutes later. I was 5 years old. Like I said, I was there when the cops came. We watched from the kitchen window as they pulled up and dragged my grandfather out of the tavern with the loaded gun, drunk, into the police car. And apparently, according to the newspaper stories that ran the next day, you know, he confessed that he was on his way to kill us. The fact that Grandpa was able to get a city job as a security guard through an uncle who knew a local judge who was connected to the mayor says a lot about Jersey City's patronage system and general reputation. Everyone stole. It was no big deal. So Jersey City, all the neighborhoods, the ethnic neighborhoods, were separated by parish. So every few blocks you have a different church. Some of them aren't even here, even working anymore. This one's still open. But St. Aidan's, which we just passed, which was Hague's Parish, that was an Irish neighborhood. You know, you move a little further down, you hit a German church. We're going to head down to the Polish church where I grew up.
And my grandfather bought a house in an Irish neighborhood. My grandfather was a barber across the street from City Hall, and he knew all the politicians.
City Hall. You know, I dream about it so much. It looms so large in my memory. You know, it was right outside our window, and all the shit in Jersey City went down at City Hall, so. Jersey City was a tough place to grow up, except I didn't know any better. I had nothing to compare it to. All I knew was that I was well fed and comfortable in our apartment. Stealing food outright from stores and delis was never condoned, not when my father was little and not when I was growing up. But my father, a teamster, fed us with merchandise that fell off the truck at work. At the Union Terminal cold storage, he was a warehouse checker, which meant he had to make sure everything they said was on the truck got into the warehouse, and vice versa. At least once a week, a crate of Steakums or prepackaged chicken cordon bleu would fall off the refrigerated truck and into our own freezer at home. Mom insisted Daddy never stole a morsel, that the boxes were gifts from the truck drivers for whom he did favors, as if it was theirs to give away. Just the places in Jersey City, much like on the waterfront, you know, were either run by the mob or by the city, you know, had some finger in it. In Jersey City, the dirt ran deep. Corruption was so ingrained over the decades that adults thought, as I did, that every place was the same and that you couldn't escape it, that you might as well vote for the person who could help you or your relatives get a job on the city payroll. I had a boy, and we named him Dean, after no one in the family. We simply liked the name, fresh and new. When I took Dean home from the hospital, I stared hard at his face and searched for clues in his features. With each twist, his face would completely change, like a kaleidoscope, leaving little trace of the last pattern I'd viewed. Daddy was in there, but so was Ma. But when he smiled, my baby was Grandpa. The first time I noticed it, it scared the shit out of me. Now that I had a son of my own, I understood why my mother prayed for Grandpa. He had suffered in the worst way, alone. Though he deserved to be left all alone, it was still sad. And besides, family was family. If they didn't pray for your soul, who would?
By the time I wrote the book, I wasn't living in Jersey City anymore, and I felt like, in a way, they weren't even my stories to tell anymore, but I took them, and I ran with them, as fast as I could.